said, it's band photo time here at the Lawrence Transit Central Station.
Cheers.
This is our solution.
Newest Civic Rock Trio. Look
Zoom's
out,
not working in the main conference.
look out,
room.
Rush.
yeah,
We're taking
Only
over.
IT can update, so this is where we're at. I got we're at 410. I think with Alan, Bill, and the two of you are still short of quorum.
Yeah.
So up to you on.
I mean, I think wait a little bit longer. So at 4:10, yeah, we can wait a
See
couple
if
more
one other
minutes.
person comes in.
Yeah.
Did other people?
Yeah, I
say
thought
they
you
were-
had
Yes.
emailed me back saying that we had 5 people confirmed, so
We do.
that's why I'm
Yeah.
willing to wait.
Both Austin and Freddie both said they could be here virtually, so
Okay.
we'll see if one or both of them shows up.
And it was that they say sometimes that the way that weather patterns work around an eclipse will make the clouds divide, and I actually saw that happen. It was like
Nice.
stormy, rainy, and then it just opened up. It was really, that one was more dramatic than this one. This one was awesome, but that one was just the way the sky worked. It was more dramatic.
I think ready whenever
Yep.
you are.
I haven't seen Austin come off of mute and camera, but I'm assuming he's here and we'll say yes. Hey, Jared.
Sorry, my headset's not working, but there's a bit of an emergency out front. I've got to handle real quick.
Okay, well, we have enough people present to actually make this a legitimate meeting. Jared, who would normally provide us the rules of engagement, is taking care of an emergency at this time. Adam, do you have rules, or I can try and summarize off the top of my head?
Yeah, happy to help. So, afternoon, everybody. I'm Adam Weichel with Lawrence Transit, and we'll work. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and public access cable channel 25. During the meeting, when you're not participating, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found on the lower left-hand side of the Zoom menu. In some cases, we may mute or unmute people as needed to minimize distractions during the meeting. Please remember to state your name and title for the benefit of those listening remotely. If you're participating by phone, you can click *6 to unmute your phone. And now I'll do roll call. Lance.
Here.
Here.
Mike.
Yep.
Alan.
Not coming off mute quite yet, but I see you up there, Alan.
It looks like Alan.
Yep, here.
Thank you.
Bill.
Yes.
Don't see anybody else, but
Dominic is the other one on the list, I think.
yes,
Okay.
Dominic, and Freddie.
Oh, and Freddie, yeah. Okay, well, we still have 5 out of the 7 members, which gives us enough for quorum. So thanks everyone who is able to make it today. Lance, and everyone who's remote as well. So first item on the agenda is public comment, which I see there's nothing attached to the agenda, and you're scrolling through the windows. I don't see anyone who is not a member of the public, I guess. Well, I don't see anyone who's not associated with Lawrence Transit in some way already. So I assume there's no public comment. If someone else comes in, we can of course come back. First formal item on the agenda is approving minutes from our February meeting. We were not able to do so at the April meeting because we lacked enough attendance to constitute a quorum. So hopefully everyone who's on the line has had an opportunity to review, and I will, as I usually do, give you 3 opportunities to offer amendments to the minutes to make them correct. So first call, does anybody in attendance have any amendments to offer to the minutes? Second call, does anyone have any amendments to offer to the minutes from our February meeting? Last call, does anyone have any amendments to offer to the minutes from our February meeting? Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Thanks, Adam and staff, for putting those together for us. First item on the regular agenda is a review of the draft policy and procedure manual. And I'm guessing you already have it open. Yes, you do. So Adam will share screen with the information for us.
Okay. Okay, so like I need to swap.
No, I think you're getting the right thing. Oh, it's got the full notes on there.
Slew of technical difficulties. Everybody okay with this view?
I'm good with it. Everyone
Yeah.
remote good?
So we'll be talking through policy and procedure manual development. So this is work that we've been doing slowly. I wouldn't say back burner, but it's been on the side of a bunch of other project work for the past year or so. And the challenge for us currently is that we have a lot of policies and procedures. The documentation is not well organized. It's in different formats. It's in different files that we provide to the federal government 3 times or every 3 years as part of our audit process, the training or review. There's a lot of administrative type policies and procedures that just help us do our work consistently and efficiently that exist in a bunch of different places. So this work aims to get some consistency around those documents, have them in one place. There's pain points when we're onboarding new employees and trying to point them to how we do things and where stuff is stored. And so that's really the general purpose of this. I note here in the scope that this, the goal of this is for it to include both internal and public facing policies and procedures. So there will be elements of this that aren't necessarily for public consumption. They're processes and procedures that don't really hold public value. They're just for us to be able to do the work and have step by step, that sort of thing. There's staff HR type policies or the way we do our work from home work that doesn't necessarily need public involvement, public participation. It's just the nature of our work. So there is internal and public facing. It's worth noting as the way that we do our work in coordination with KU, this manual development will include everything that applies to the city's portion of Lawrence Transit. There are certainly going to be a number of policies and procedures that that overlap that we want to do consistently across all buses or working with our service provider TransDev. And so I just note here that things that do touch both city-funded service and university-funded service need approval by their respective advisory committees. The city won't be implementing a policy that KU must follow without agreeing to it, for example. Going beyond that, it's important to note that everything we have in here would be superseded by citywide policies, university-wide policies, there's city code, there's state and federal regulations. So, you know, we will work very hard to avoid any conflicts in those areas. But if anything was ever done that was in conflict with a state code, for example, we must follow the state code. So I just wanted to note that. And this doesn't necessarily include more informal documents. So you'll see a big range of the type of documents that will be in here, but it may not include, you know, very frontline type working documents. Written practices, instructions, checklists, spreadsheets, there's a few examples. The document is aimed to be organized in a few different ways. So there are, we'll organize all of our policies and procedures and other document types around functional areas. So we'll have sets of policies that relate to safety, for example, or relate to transit operations or facilities. So that's one way in which we can just kind of easily find and organize that work. It will also be organized by document type. So I've mentioned policies and procedures, which are kind of the obvious ones you think of, but we also have full-fledged plans, contracts, things that relate to the work that we do that may not be duplicated fully in this document, but referenced by it. So we're not going to bring in the 200 pages of Transportation 2050, but we do want to link to that document from our policy manual, which just helps, again, everybody have a one point where they're looking for everything. I mentioned internal and internal and public facing policies and procedures. There will be essentially a transparency that we allow. So we want to post all public facing policies on the website and make it very clear to people what our pet policy or stroller policy is, so that people don't have to hunt for that information. We're unlikely to post publicly our work from home policy. That's not necessarily something that needs to be public view.
Only thing that I'm seeing in terms of document type, there are things I can think of that aren't listed there, like maps, diagrams might be included. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive in there, and more of the point, it's just, you know, whatever you call it, it's you're trying to sweep in everything that could constitute something that a member of the public or a member of Lawrence Transit staff or KU staff would want to see.
Yeah, I think it can be flexible. I think if we discover a document type like you suggest, that there'd be a way to incorporate that. So where we are currently at is we have 82 documents. I call them draft documents. Some of these are adopted plans, so they are not necessarily drafts, but for the sake of this work, they are 82 document types that we have taken our first big sweep to decide what should all fit or what should all be a part of this manual. They're a mix of document types. Like I said, there's adopted plans, there's contracts, policies, procedures, and other things. The hope is that we can get before this group by next month's meeting a draft of what we would consider the public facing portions of this. Hopefully you can look at today, or if you look at it over the next couple of weeks and have thoughts about things that you think are missing. We're hoping that this first pass at getting a public document kind of finalized and posted on the website, that we can capture everything that they would need to know, knowing that we could always add or adjust after that. I mentioned that we'd like to post it on the website, And again, just reiterate the public facing policies, that desire this group to approve those, and also, the KU Transit Commission, if it's operational things that we want the same thing to happen on a KU bus that happens on a city bus. Moving forward, the idea or the hope is, greater transparency of if we will need to add a policy, if there's a gap of something we don't provide good guidance on to the public or ourselves. If there's a policy that is feeling outdated, that we'd be able to run those revisions in a public way through this group and get different insights on how to make it better. Everything internal that doesn't need the public level of oversight and approval would be just approved by me, or coordinated with KU if it was something that needed to be between our organizations. This is a very large list, but this is those 82 referenced documents. I tried to indicate on each line if it was a plan, a policy, procedure, a contract. So you can see in this first pass of 82 items, we don't even necessarily hit all the different document types we have contemplated. So I think there's probably some more for us to gather, but this is the first look at it. It's unevenly split right now with what we've identified. There's a lot more internal ones that we've identified, which is on the left side. There you can see a large block of procedures, which is, just that's where a lot of our work lies that we've been trying to get in one place. And then on the public side of things, a lot of these policies have existed for a long time. Some of them I would consider more practices that maybe we indicated in some way in the ride guide that there was a policy, but didn't have it fully fleshed out. So some of these still need some work to be real grown-up policies and things that we can stand behind. But I don't, at today's meeting, have kind of that next step, which is the full policy for all of these public bullets, which I would hope to have by next month's meeting. I only have one more slide on this presentation. It's just the thank you slide. So I think I'll pause here, and I'm happy to answer any.
Okay. Is there something that city commission has to approve, or is it kind of just approved internally?
This level of policy is not affecting like city code or other things that need to, it's all operational type work. So I think we're comfortable with this being reviewed and approved at the advisory committee level, just so we have some comfort that we're approaching things in the right way, providing a space for public to give us feedback.
A lot of this is just updating stuff that's already been there.
A lot of it, yeah, a lot of the other policies that have been in place.
Like the food and drink policy is an example. I know that we've had a rule for a long time about it.
And animal policy, things like that.
But it's not specifically written down somewhere to say, no kidding, this is the actual rules for, can you bring your pets on? What kinds of pets can you bring on? When can you do it? Food and drink, what kinds can you bring on when, whatnot.
Correct.
Are you envisioning like individual parts of each of these, or whole documents might involve the consent of KU's Transit Commission to approve them?
I think a lot, we meet with KU and TransDev weekly. I think it'll start to become evident what might make another organization uncomfortable about a policy. So I would guess it's going to be more just making sure we list things that all of our, I'd say 3 organizations, because I include TransDev, can actually enforce or have as part of what we have as our policy comfort. Well, the pet and animal policy, that one will be largely, we're bound by federal rules in that space and how we can talk with people about service animals. And so some of these will already be kind of, we'll have a narrow path to even have
of things dictate, like this is controlled by federal law or regulation. This is controlled by state law or regulation, something like that. Because I would be concerned potentially about members of the public complaining about certain rules, policies that we put in place. And, you know, if our hands are tied, it doesn't really help us to get yelled at in terms of, hey, we should be changing this, and we can't do anything about it ultimately. So that, I think that would be something that would be beneficial, like earmarking when things are blocked off or dictated by someone other than just us.
Yeah, so I guess I'll take that segue to note, because you don't necessarily see it in this presentation, but each policy will have elements that are always there. They will list at what level a policy needs approval, how updates are made, the frequency of updates. If they some of them, the federal ones, will have to be reviewed on
Yeah.
certain schedules. So
I'd recommend having a version history
Yeah.
on it, like front page. That's a mandatory thing in our QMS stuff.
Yeah,
that
if
might
there's
help.
if there's a federal or state mandate, you know, or whatever, statute that enforces how we have a policy, it might be good to have that listed. This is federal. No, you don't get to choose this.
Mhm. Okay.
As far as the governance and enforcement of various policies, is that any literature of that included in here, how it's going to be managed?
I think by policy, you know, we already make the split of what's internal versus public facing. And so I think we imagine there or planning on there being a kind of who is the authority figure over any given policy. Is it something that this advisory group is voting to update, or does it need to be at the city commission level, at the state level, the federal level? So that, yeah, governance is clear and policy by policy.
Yeah, and it may be the case that just specific components of individual policies are things that we can control, and then other things are blocked off by codes and ordinances that we have to follow.
Yeah, as far as the public facing, so there's a lot of people in the public that don't really understand or know where state and federal regulations work within the system, and so the more information they have regarding that up front is helpful.
Yep.
Yeah, not that everyone takes it to this level, but we do try to provide kind of easy linked paths to figuring out things, especially on our website. So I do think if we are required to do a certain thing in a policy, that is going to
Link
be
it to that reference
that's going to
document
be based on an FTA circular document, and we can link directly to that.
or a CFR or something like that. Okay. Thank you. Do you have any other last questions, Lance?
Makes sense.
I'll go around the horn then. Alan, Bill, Austin, do any of you have comments, questions, concerns you want to bring up?
Austin Stifler, ptac member here. I think everything looks organizationally pretty good. Seems like there's a good balance between kind of where the priorities lie between sort of what the public deliberation would look like. So I think it's on a good path.
Thank you. Anybody else on the line? I know that's mostly staff members, but does anyone else have anything they want to bring up on this? Okay. Thank you for that information, Adam. Look forward to seeing more comprehensive manual when we get to the June meeting. Next item on the agenda then is upcoming changes to advisory boards, which if you haven't been following the news, there's a lot of changes afoot. So please, Adam.
All right, short presentation, but big content. Can everyone, I just brought up the advisory board changes. Can you already see that shared?
Yeah, it looks like it's on the city hall video.
Okay. So on this last week's city commission agenda, there were some actions related to restructuring advisory boards. At the city, there was a separate committee stood up, the Committee on Boards and Commissions, that over the course of a year or more, I believe, did work around, the city commission has a lot of advisory boards. Is that system functioning to give them sufficient or appropriate advice to make the decisions that lead the city on the direction it wants to go? The Committee on Boards and Commissions looked at the structure of the strategic plan with its 5 outcome areas and tried to figure out if there was a way for advisory boards to reflect that, so that kind of in functional areas or outcome areas, the commission was getting recommendations from members of the public who participate in advisory boards. And so the bulk of that committee's work, I believe, ended in 2022. It came back with some extra staff work before City Commission last week on May 7th, and they did approve these changes. So what we'll talk through today isn't necessarily anything I can change or take back with your all feedback already on where things are kind of
Yeah, just to be clear, it means that first bullet where it's proposed change is actually change to be implemented now.
Yeah, I put together the slide deck prior to
Yeah,
stuff actually going on.
you had to put it together on the agenda at some point.
So, big picture. So, Connected City is one of the outcome areas of the strategic plan. It has a lot of performance related to transportation. That's where a lot of Lawrence Transit's work lies, as far as the things we do are trying to move performance needles in that outcome area. Getting more people on the bus, serving people more equitably, making riding the bus a more comfortable, convenient experience through shelters and technology and all the different efforts we make, sustainability efforts we make in that realm. So Connected City has a lot of different transportation measures. It does have other measures that are not transportation. Water, wastewater is in Connected City. There's some IT measures, technology related measures in Connected City, and aviation as well. And so the action this last week was to, I say combine here, functionally, Multimodal Transportation Commission, Public Transit Advisory Committee will be dissolved, with members encouraged to reapply for the Connected City Advisory Board. There's not a drafting of current membership. It's not like each group gets so many slots and they fill them. People reapply, and then the appointment system is the same, where the mayor puts forth appointments voted on by all commissioners. So I think I talked through the bullet about why making the change. This came from the executive summary of the action this last week. So just trying to make sure, commission wants to make sure committees are giving direction that really helps them advance these different outcome areas. The timeline is relatively quick. So the intent is to have current advisory boards have their final meetings in August of this year, with the new boards starting their work in September. And so that really means, aside from today's meetings, that we just have 3 meetings left as this group. I mentioned some of these other bullets. Basically, terms would expire at the end of August. All of you if you're still interested in providing input and guidance in this way would be encouraged to reapply. And there is a lot of work yet to be done in the realm of ordinances, resolutions, and bylaws. I think another segment of this work that the city hopes to advance was the fact that advisory boards and commissions and committees had differing structure and bylaws and rules of engagement, if you will, for meetings. And so trying to bring that into alignment, to have an expectation of what that looks like. I don't have additional slides here. I focused on what impacts ptac. I guess I'll be clear that this impacts all advisory boards. It's not targeted to transportation or connected city. This is of the 43 boards, committees, commissions currently. There's only a select few that kind of have to remain because they're required by code or otherwise, and the rest are kind of going through a similar process of dissolution and then reforming into functional area advisory groups. So
we don't know yet, like how many members per group or anything like that for sure.
I don't believe so. I think the goal is to try to have consistency across the new groups. And so there's not some groups with 7 and some with 11. My gut feeling is, the best practices in this space is usually less than 15 people is smart if you're trying to come to consensus decisions, and just have the ability for people to voice their thoughts and have time for all that. But correct, I don't think there's no firm membership numbers.
I'll be getting more information on this.
Yeah.
This summer.
Yeah, and I'm betting one of the things they'll have to settle out is how people who are near the end of what should be like 2 full terms are, if your board disappears and it's being built as a brand new board. I mean, technically speaking, Connected City Advisory Board doesn't exist. None of us have been on that board. So for those of us who have been here for a handful of years, the city's gonna have to figure out, are we still eligible to actually be named to a full term or a partial term? I'm sure that one of the things they'll have to figure out is if everyone is being rolled in at once, you can't just have all 9, 11, however many people you have on the board have terms that end at the exact same time and then re-go through this all in 3 years when everybody's term expires. So
Correct.
a lot of details to nail down.
Well, and then how many people are actually applying and interested to serve as opposed to how many places they have for people to serve. That might be a little bit of have to figure out how that works.
I mean, we have 7 people on this board. MMTC, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure last I looked, they had 8 people on the board at that point, if not 9 now. So I mean, if you're just talking numbers wise, that's way too many for even the top number that you suggested, which is probably more than the city is going to select. And there are other boards that I know of that are merging like more than 2 groups together to create that. So you're talking like 20 some people that have to be divvied up. That's going to be a tough challenge for the city to come up with a solution to, I think.
Yeah, and this is certainly an area I'll want to keep bringing back information or pointing you all to new information if it comes through commission. Because like you say, there are a lot of details to still work through that will impact the ability to still participate and all of that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, Al Ackland, ptac member. Do you know if any of the city liaison for the new boards, have they been selected yet, Adam?
They have not. I'm certain that, like in the case like this one, when groups are coming together, I think it'd be natural to look at existing liaisons of those groups and figure out if they can help function in that way. My gut feeling, practically, since a connected city group would discuss many other topics other than just what ptac discusses now or just what MMTC discusses now. I wouldn't be surprised by
Multiple.
having multiple liaisons who are there less frequently or there during items that matter to their functional area. I can see some version of a shared model in that space because I would only be able to talk so informed about water, wastewater, but there's many more skilled people in that area who could present and talk through an item and help.
And you're probably not that skilled at IT stuff either. Yes.
Oh.
That
so-
makes sense to have multiple people and
Yeah, so I don't know for sure, Alan, but I think I think it's gonna be unlikely that like a single person knows enough about all those different topic areas for there to always only be one person.
The only question that comes to my mind about all this is that as we address funding related things. So for example, in whatever 2028, when we have to decide, whether we're going to renew the local sales tax to fund transit, and that would reapply to other departments as well. When there are funding related things that are consolidating the boards like this, is there going to be the people that are, kind of informing and advocating for those things as well? And I kind of wonder about that a little bit. And that's the one concern, I guess, that I have going forward, how that's going to be addressed.
Yeah, and I think, just speaking solely from Transit's work, this has been important to talking through issues and getting guidance on project things. We'd hope that most of that would still come through a new board. But certainly we view this as one way in which we get really good rider information and public information, but we also try to diversify where and how we're getting that through other outreach activities. So I think we'll need to continue to be and maybe elevate how we, with any given project or initiative like that, how we're talking with people about it and getting good input to guide, what we do.
Or how an expanded and more diversified advisory board addresses the necessary issues, because that you're putting a lot more stuff on those people. And so, there's going to be a lot more deadlines, a lot more meetings, a lot more things that have to be, and you're going to have, get your quorum, and there's a lot more that's going to have to be done. So
yeah,
here's how they're going to do it.
I'm thinking the aspect of, you're talking about connected city involving a lot of things that aren't necessarily transit related. Like a lot of us would probably be semi-familiar with the topics that come up at Multimodal Transit Commission, I would bet. But I would bet that there aren't a lot of us that would be very conversant about, like you said, the wastewater kind of stuff. I doubt I work in IT, but I'm guessing that what I would know about IT for what we would need to talk about in this meeting would be useless. And I would guess that, no offense to anyone else out there, I'm sure that most of us came on here because we were interested in transit and not because we have the other interests that line up with the new connected city position. So I'm curious how they're gonna divvy that up in terms of how many people are more focused on the transit side, how many people are more focused on other aspects of what goes into the connected city outcomes. And that'll probably be true on the other boards, just, not relevant to us here necessarily.
I think kind of a question of organization, like how are we going to make sure all said concerns and issues and areas are addressed under one bigger advisory board umbrella. I guess that's the thing.
Yeah, if you're talking about having multiple liaisons, it may make sense in terms of them having expertise areas, but you're still gonna need one person who's gonna be the central coordinator in it you know, now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of sounding like one of the city manager kind of staff people is that central locus who can fuse people together across those. Because I'm guessing you don't want to be the person who's leading discussions about wastewater treatment in the city.
Oh, well, certainly.
I don't know if you do, to be honest.
I mean, I don't mind talking about wastewater.
I don't either, but what I know about wastewater would probably fill a thimble right now. So I would be interested to see how they're gonna divvy out roles, like, or is there gonna be any division between like people who have different interests on that?
Yeah, the one thing that I think of in this discussion is this, as meeting cross-departmentally every week and more frequently than that, sometimes there's necessary compromise across functional groups or working together to get certain things done. So it is certainly a great challenge, like you say, Lance, and also I think forces some of those discussions. We have to think multi-departmentally in our work and not only in one functional area to be a coordinated city. So there could be some benefits to that also. But yeah, certainly can be harder to do the work of zooming out and having a bigger lens or a bigger scope.
In terms of the reapplication stuff, have you heard anything in terms of when that will actually be opened? Is it gonna be on June 1st or? Because I imagine right now, if you look up, it's, we have ptac, you have sustainability board, anything that currently is there.
The city website is set up for it, yeah.
I don't know more details yet. They talk about an active recruitment campaign, so I assume once it's functionally ready, if the desire is to have first meetings in September and setting a date and time for those, then I would imagine June, July is going to be important to start getting applicants in for so many appointments to happen. But
yeah, we're gonna have 100 some people getting confirmed at the same meeting in August, and that's, I'm sure, a lot of effort for the city staff to go through and put all that paperwork together, mail it out, all that stuff.
It is. So that's, I'm guessing here a little bit, but yeah, we'll certainly share more information as like the communication staff and clerk kind of will guide some of that.
Be concerned if I don't hear more about this in the next month or two.
Yeah. So, anyone who's on this call on the committee, Austin, Bill, Alan, Lance, myself, I'm gonna address myself, even though that's kind of egotistic. Keep your eyes peeled. I would definitely encourage you all, if you are interested, to reapply. You've all contributed well to the organization so far through your advice and consent here, and I'm sure that it would be helpful going forward if you are willing to offer time again. Before we break on this topic, you have anything else, Lance?
Nope.
Anyone who's on the line? Alan, I see you just came off of mute.
Yeah, Al Ackland, ptac member. Yeah, with a combined group with the extra coverage areas involved, I'm sure it might be difficult to keep the meetings down to an hour and a half every month. So I'm sure that's just the kind of details you'll be working on to try to effective for public communication. If somebody has to sit through a long meeting to make a comment, a lot of times that's a kind of a turnoff.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thanks, Alan. Bill, Austin, do either of you have anything you want to add? Okay, I see Bill shaking his head. And Austin, I presume since you already came off mute once, you don't have anything to add. So thank you, everyone.
ptac member here. I think this looks like a productive plan. I do agree with Alan, though. Time management might run into a problem, sort of balancing that generality, kind of interconnectedness versus the specificity of the meetings. But I think it's worth a shot.
just seeing you speak just reminded me of something. We'll need to make sure in one of the parts of the ordinance that sets up the new board, there's probably gonna be a spot specific or multiple spots for KU related people as opposed to just Lawrence Transit related people.
Yeah,
That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, our current structure doesn't carve out, like it doesn't only allow KU. We certainly encourage that each year because that's historically we've had a student from KU apply and provides a good perspective to this group. I don't know. I would be surprised, I think, if these boards had specific carve outs for certain types of roles.
Okay.
But yet to be seen, but
Yeah, it just, to me, it strikes me as, given the nature of what Lawrence Transit does to integrate with KU, that it doesn't seem like a good idea to operate without that kind of perspective. Whether it's a carve out or we do a very targeted recruitment drive, hey, if someone from KU, please apply and we will gladly put your name forward to join. And Austin, if that's you that you want to reapply, I have no problem with that, of course, but it's someone from KU, that perspective is important because the consent of what KU does with our transit department is really important.
Austin Stifler again. I would agree with that 100%. I think maybe that recruitment method might work. It is definitely more difficult to create carve-outs when you're kind of establishing a multidisciplinary board, so to speak, compared to more targeted boards.
Yeah.
Play devil's advocate. So just as a point of note, KU's Transit Commission does not have a city appointed person on that group. We go as staff and we provide, some of how we coordinate or what we're doing. We get good questions. But I think the work can still be done without kind of appointees. But
it may be something,
discount.
yeah, it may be something that we need to liaise more in the future, just as a matter of public to public groups that we have mutually supporting perspectives that would help each other. Bring back, anybody else have anything they want to bring up? Okay, thank you, Adam. I believe that wipes out our regular agenda items. So, ptac member items, I don't have anything. Lance, I'm assuming you would have brought it up.
I have a question. August 1st changes to routes, guides, everything like that. Is there any information about that? Opportunity for public engagement. I have not seen anything yet.
Yeah, so this year is a little different. We, with changing routes in January, that's something that we never do. And so our window of people's experience with new routes was a lot shorter than the typical year when they've been experiencing the new route since August. We did have surveys open from January all the way through April 1st for people to provide feedback on routes. We didn't have specific proposed changes. We just wanted to hear what was working and what wasn't and try to adjust to that in August. Because there wasn't a big enough window for us to see what the route was doing, propose a change, get feedback on that change, and still meet ride guide schedule. And so we did get a lot of comments in that survey period. We're looking at what we can tweak right now because we're sensitive to making really big changes again after making really big changes and not having a whole lot of time using the routes. So we're working on a summary document right now to gather all these comments. It's challenging because they are all open-ended comments. So we have to categorize them and retell them in a way that is true to what we heard without just posting just a giant table of comments for review. So I can say there are some themes that emerged that we'll be pointing to needing to look at in 2025 because we're not ready to change things around quickly again. There are people concerned with the midday service reductions that were used to afford Sunday service. And so we weren't ready this spring to ask people, do you want Sunday service reduced or eliminated, since it's only been operating since January 2nd.
Yeah, the hourly service during the day has been real hard for me. It's having a negative impact on my ability to do business, so.
So that's the trade-off.
It's like, yeah, it's been.
But then if you don't have Sunday service, there's no ability to really do business on that day for anyone who wants to use it.
Yeah. We're getting high utilization Sunday service. So it's an important discussion to have. We do not have enough data to turn around and do engagement and rag guide changes this calendar year. So
are you keeping the same guide for August, or?
we are looking at some possible smaller tweaks to routes that don't hurt any existing access. We're looking at some timing changes that make things work just a bit better, but no major wholesale things.
Like this route might cut this corner a little bit differently, not this route's gonna go down here entirely and skip this block of the city.
But there will be a new guide that comes out.
Correct.
Okay. As that gets ready, I felt like there was a lot of things in the guide that came out in January that either were not correct or were just confusing in the way they were displayed. And so it'd be nice to have some proofing of the layout of the new guide before it comes out, just to kind of see if we can catch any of those things should they occur again.
I guess share as much as you can about what didn't work in January, or if those issues persisted in the February printing. We do an internal proofing process that takes us 4 to 6 weeks as we change routes, get things printed, put eyes on it over and over again. So that process is just beginning. So anything you have that could help us, know where to look at for stuff that's been confusing before would help. We don't really have time in the process to put out like a rag guide proof to the public.
Yeah, okay.
For review at that level. It's too much to be able to fit in that.
And the point of a proof like that is to correct the obvious proofing errors, not necessarily to solicit public comment. I don't like this route, I want this stop to be included, that kind of stuff. That's not helpful for what you're going through.
It's more just making sure that everything is accurate and.
Yeah, this says that the bus shows up at 6:20, it shows up at 6:30.
Easy to
Get that
read.
fixed.
Like one of the things that I see, and it is not just archive, and it's a lot of things. There's a lot of tendency people want to do gray on gray printing. People with normal eyesight have a hard time seeing that. Why would you do that? So things like that, okay, let's make sure this is easy to use.
Well, yeah, we'll take any other comments about that sort of stuff so we can incorporate it into our review. But yeah, certainly we take many passes through looking at all the times and time points, bus stop locations, routes themselves, time points, and then of course all the written information. But yes, would appreciate any other feedback we can.
I'm trying to, since you talked about colors and grayscale stuff, something just stuck in my mind. I don't know of any particular tools that would work for it, but if we ever funneled this through I don't know what the tool would be, but like a color blindness checker, like to say, like if you had a certain kind of color blindness, would you still be able to discern the information appropriately in there? I honestly don't know. It might be something to look at in the future.
Yeah, I don't know that we're aware of something we just.
I'm not sure of one either, because I don't know that my agency has ever done anything like that with marketing materials, but I can definitely solicit ideas if we have anything and funnel them to you that might be helpful.
See even more of the common sense thing, just like dark on light, light on dark, gray on gray, not so gray.
Well, and not only that, but like potentially other symbology, like everything is solid lines in the guide right now. It might be helpful to have other kinds of lines in there when you do overlapping things so that it's very obvious, like this is a dash, so it corresponds with this route. This is a solid line, so it corresponds with this route, as opposed to the cognitive load of this is a pink line, this is an orange line, this is a yellow line or something like that, and then interpreting it. I obviously don't have anything that I can offer right at this moment, but I think that might be something long future that would be helpful to make the guide more inclusive and accessible to people who don't have the same kinds of vision acuity that typical people do.
Yeah, happy to take any specifics, help us
Mhm.
issues, but yeah, happy to take any of that and try to make that.
Well, I think we talked the transit guide to death, and well, actually, we haven't checked with people external. Alan, I think Bill left, so Bill or Alan, Austin, do either of you have anything you want to add on that stuff?
Al Ackland, ptac member. I don't know if it was last year or longer than that. We had a presentation, and part of that presentation was going to be something submitted back to the group about the cost differences between operating electric buses and operating different types of maybe a diesel bus versus electric. And I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know if we ever got that summary, and if we did, I just need to know where to go to look to take a look at that.
I remember we had something presented on that last year. I don't remember when it was. I think it was relatively early in the year. That was like a handful of months. But I do remember you had like a line chart that showed like, here's the cost for our diesel buses, for our hybrids, and for our electrics on like a per mile operating basis, something like that.
Yeah, we've gotten information monthly from our consultant who's helping us do the project management for our first 2 phases of electric buses, which are on the road. The second phase, those 2 buses started operating in February this year. So we've got a lot of that data. We haven't figured out the best way yet to put it on the project website. They have a dashboard that we're able to access, but it's not one that we can make public. So we're trying to figure out the right way to get that type of information out to the public in general. Happy to share some of the most recent, some select slides maybe from what they've given us that are related to cost that would at least give you an idea that stretches back till the start of service to now, and kind of month by month how things have been looking.
Okay. Yeah, we're just curious if we'd ever got any feedback on that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that'd definitely be good for a June topic, I think.
Yeah, happy to bring that back around.
Thanks, Ellen. Austin, do you have anything else you want to add now?
Austin Stifler, ptac member. I don't think I have any further comments at this time.
Okay. Well, that pretty much exhausts ptac member items, but just as always, if you do have something that comes up outside of one of these meetings, feel free to email Adam, Lance, and myself, and we'll make sure that it gets on the agenda for the following meeting. Next on the agenda then is transit staff items. You have an update on the downtown station selection process, I assume.
Yes, so just wanted to note that a week from today will be our next downtown station steering committee meeting. And at that meeting, the group will be voting on a recommended boundary for the downtown station improvements, a recommended boundary that they'll give to City Commission for a vote on June 4th. And so this is kind of the first set of votes related to that project. And so just wanted you all to be aware of that. The project website, I'm keeping updated with materials. We got a lot of comments around the boundary. The draft boundary, when we put it out for comment from March 22nd to April 22nd, there were, I believe 342 total pins dropped on the map.
Wow.
174 of those pins had substantial comments associated with them. So a ton of guidance from the public, a lot of specific site ideas people already have, which we anticipated That's not really the stage we're at in the project, but we'll use those ideas, 4 or 5 months from now, and we'll load them into that piece of that work.
In the
But
meantime, you'll say, if we want to include it, you gotta have the boundaries at least somewhere around that block.
correct. So Lance is on that group, but that group will be discussing. I'll say the draft boundary went out, and there are comments from people who want the boundary narrowed to keep it more central to the downtown, to what's practical to get people to and from. There's other comments about expanding it to different properties or areas in order to cast a wider net for properties to evaluate. So the committee will need to wrestle with kind of where they stand on if we want to expand or contract what was proposed to the public first of all.
But they're gonna start with what we already have drafted, I'm assuming.
I'm going to present that along with kind of a slate of other approaches.
Like
and
this
see
would
where
include this would include this group or something kind of things. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank-
there'll probably be some adjustment on the fly during the
Yeah.
meeting to get to.
I think that's a great idea compared to just let people go on their own. You're gonna end up with hundreds of different ideas if every single person just says, this should go in, this shouldn't, whatever.
That's all I had on that project. Just wanted you all to be aware.
Austin, Alan, do you have anything you want to advise Lance on with that before the meeting?
Al Axel, PTAC member. I have to admit, I tried to put pins on a map and I was unable with my meager skills to do so. So I was unable to put in my 2 cents.
Okay,
Alright.
well, we'll take any feedback on where we are limited in the systems we can try to use for that type of feedback gathering. But if there was, I know some, through this first phase, it did have a handful of people email me directly and say, I just want to make sure this is included. And so I dropped a pin for them. But if you had thoughts about areas to be included, we're always accepting that type of feedback. So email can help make sure that stuff gets incorporated and isn't just lost because of the system.
Okay. Well, that exhausts our agenda for today. So I'll give everyone one last opportunity before we adjourn for the month. Does anyone have anything they want to bring up? Okay. Thank you very much for being in attendance, everyone. Adam, thank you for putting together the agenda today. Look forward to seeing you all on June 10th for the third to last meeting of ptac. We're adjourned. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
You.